Hello again, welcome back to Karl's online art tutorials. I hope you're well, and thanks for joining me again. I've mentioned before about observational drawing, so that's what the focus of today will be about. The reason I think that's important, as much as it's really good fun to draw from the imagination, it can sometimes be frustrating if you can't get things right, and definitely when your mind goes blank, when you can't think of anything to draw. And this could be at that point where you think, right, I'll do some exercises, then I'll do some warm-ups and practice, and that's where observational drawing comes in. So observational drawing is more formal, but it will definitely improve all of your drawing overall. So when you go back to drawing by imagination, you will find that the exercises, the practice that you do observing will help you with that as well. So what you'll need today is just the usual basics: a pencil and a rubber and a sharpener. So we'll be doing some pencil sketches. And the skills today, we'll learn how to properly look and study an object and how to use those observational skills to improve your drawing and how to capture things. So really, I'm very lucky that I've got the opportunity here to publish these videos and cover different topics. But if I was just asked in a one sentence to sum up what's the most important thing within developing your art skills, I would have to say it's observation. And that is the number one rule. It's so important to just continue to look and study things much more closely than you've ever done before. Everyday objects, things that you take for granted, the more you look at things around you and the more you open your eyes, the more you'll notice the visual complexity of things and visual appeal of things as well. The absolute golden rule is it's so important to look, not just for a little while, but continually right throughout the process of drawing until the end. So if we're looking at doing some observational drawing, then we're looking at creating a still life, really. We're looking at forming a group of objects that we can look at and we can set them up how we want. So just a quick word about setting up first. Rather than just using the flat surface on its own, one of the first things I might do here is just put in, I've got a tin of felt tip pens here. I'll just give it a little bit of a relief there. And another thing that's common with a still life is to perhaps just introduce some interesting folds on this fabric so that we've got, loads of sort of like interaction shapes there already. That's really interesting. Light and dark, shadows. And it's always a good thing if you can try and root out some interesting objects. The more interesting the object is to you, the more likely is you're going to enjoy doing this drawing. So I've found some quite old, dusty things here that are very interesting shapes. Anyone that attends my art classes will be looking at these objects now and saying, oh no, not that. Let's put this in. Maybe just kind of twist this chain around a little, get some perspective and some shape going. And finally, just pop in this magic wand. You can kind of see the theme I'm going for. Now these objects can be arranged at your leisure until you're happy. Maybe that goes at the back there, I don't know. And you can also obviously work with your viewpoint as well, and where it is you'll look at them from. So one of the first things is to have a look at trying to find some objects that you enjoy drawing, that are interesting, play around with arranging them, looking at what's interesting. You're looking at things like the spaces in between, the shapes that they make, the light and dark, the way objects, where they're placed in relationship to each other. For example, the distance between the pocket watch and the books over here, and really kind of study that. One thing that's a really useful tool that you can use for looking at still life is a viewfinder. Now you have a natural viewfinder already, you have your hands, and if you kind of interlock them like this and bring them to your eye, then you can kind of create compositions for yourself within there, and pulling it away, obviously you'll see more of the image. You can also do this, I've got a scrap bit of paper here as well, easy enough to do, so cut out the shape of the paper that you're going to be using, your page, your drawing shape, and you can then try and position that whichever way is to try and find an interesting, you know, wherever you like the group and wherever it fits nicely as an image. Really useful little tips there. Now obviously you might not have some of these kind of quirky bits and bobs lying around, and that's quite understandable. So it is quite acceptable to just use whatever you can find, really. I mean, everyday, whatever's lying around the house, everyday objects. I think going back to school art classes, you know, the old trainer. What's not interesting about that one particularly is it's fairly clean, and it's not exactly what I'm looking for. Look at this one though. This one's a little bit more worn, a bit more tatty, it's lost its shape a little bit. I can play around with this again, I can play around with the positioning of it, and I can play around with my viewpoint of it, and that would be quite an interesting thing to tackle. It's fine if you can't find some quirky, strange objects like that in your house. For example, here I've just taken this out of the bathroom, so I've got a regular bottle. That might not be something that particularly interests you, but this is quite an easy sort of like basic shape to start off with. And again, this is an exercise. This is about practicing your skills and improving. So if I can use that at different angles, and I've come prepared this week in a Blue Peter style, so you know, I can use this just to practice getting my viewpoints right, and that's a really useful little thing to have there. Okay, so this lovely pot plant here will be a really nice subject, and again I could do with perhaps creating a nice background. Another thing I didn't talk about before I meant to was lighting. So just moving your lighting around, you can see what that does with the shadow there. And I could switch, actually take that off, and I'll switch to an alternative source of lighting. And this is just a small handheld pen torch thing, but I can move this around, and it's quite useful for getting the lighting effect that I want to try and capture if I'm going to try and do shadows, sketching or drawing. So you might be looking at this plant. I mean, this isn't a particularly complicated plant. There's certainly a lot more complicated out there, but you may be looking and thinking, oh, that's quite intimidating, there's quite a lot to take in there. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that. Well, again, what I was thinking is go back to the viewfinder, and what we'll do is we'll look for an area, okay, and just focus on a small area. And as you can see, you know, your mind's eye would take these in as being circular leaves, which they are a circular shape. However, on close inspection, you know, you can see that they're actually quite varied in shape. They all have their own different little misshaped styles to them. So we look for, you know, a nice composition that we like. You know, maybe go even closer. Maybe just focus on those two leaves, for example. That would be the kind of thing that would be helpful to you in starting off to observe. So first of all, looking for something that you're going to enjoy drawing, that's interesting. I do like this plant. And then secondly, it's using the viewfinder to try and select an area that you feel comfortable with starting with. And I can perhaps sketch out the edges of my viewfinder if I like, so that I can see whereabouts I'm working to. And then what I need to do is, I may need to go back to the viewfinder at times and just check it, but what I need to do now is look carefully at the shapes. What I'm doing is I'm sketching out, but I'm not really looking at the page fully. I'm doing a lot of this by feeling around. I can see in my peripheral vision to the side, you know, I can see the page as I'm sketching, but I'm also spending a lot of time focusing my eye on what I'm looking at, and that is the leaves. And I'm looking for things like this. So the relationship between these two shapes, the way they behave together, the way this overlaps, that corner and the way it's shaped as it goes over. This one kind of curls and curves down. There's many sort of sections to this line. It's just a straight line, and then it curls back up and around. So there, and I can see a hint of darker coloration around that side. I'm just marking that out. Okay, and then we've got these stems coming, overlapping like this. At the top here, you can just see the curve of that larger leaf just coming over the top there. Okay, and from there I might wish to add some shading, just bring that alive. The important thing there, which is hard to convey without you being able to see being here, is this idea I was trying to get across there, that as I'm drawing with the pencil on the page, my eyes are spending a lot of time focusing on the object that I'm drawing, in this case these two small leaves down here. So it is very important to continue to study and look, as I said before, more carefully than you've ever looked before at the object that you're drawing. So have a go yourself, try it out, choose an object or a group of objects that you think you'd probably enjoy drawing. Perhaps at first you want to try something simple, not too complicated, maybe just 3 objects. Play around with them, arrange them, change the lighting. When you're looking at them, look carefully at the space in between the negative space and the positive space, the way they interact together, the way the shapes relate to each other. And I'm sure with practice, if you look hard, then you will discover that you can capture shapes much more accurately by focusing on what you can see. Okay, so I hope you enjoy doing that. And next time, due to popular request, I'll be starting a series of graffiti art sessions. So helping you to develop your own graffiti name and develop a graffiti style on paper. I'll see you next time.